Hello and welcome back to the SBK 2024 Royal Ascot mini podcast series. This is episode 2, where we're going to be looking at all of Wednesday's action. Another 15-minute rundown here where we go through all 7 races. Myself, Tom Collins and Ross Millar will provide our tips and hopefully some insight along the way. Ross, we're recording this after half of day 1. What are your major takeaways so far?
It's been good, TC, and it's had everything you want, isn't it? You know, international winner, good young jockeys winning. I wrote last week that I thought it was a good thing that Frankie Dettori wasn't riding it. You know, he's carried the sport for a long time. We need young faces coming through. Billy Loughnane, just a really lovely lad. And Oisin Murphy talks so well. So I think it's good that they've got on the board. International winner winning a sprint, an Australian horse winning a sprint. That's great because it gets all the chat talking about how much more superior the Australian sprinters are, given that she's seen as second tier over there. So I think it's had everything. You know, from a punting point of view, it's not been great so far, but we're only halfway through. Mal June ran a nice race for an each way price in the first race, but could do with getting one on the board. And I thought Brazilian was a really good winner. I don't think we can have any complaints about Henry Longfellow, really. I thought Ryan stacked them up, had prime position, and just got run down by a quicker horse, I think.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. Rosalind was definitely the best in the St James's Palace. Ryan gave Henry Longfellow a fantastic ride, and albeit I was on at a decent price anti-post and one of my better bets of the week, I can't really complain because he had every chance and he ran a great race and just found one too good. Charon was pretty good as well in the Queen Anne, but that race completely fell apart with the French jockeys going on the wrong side of the track, seemingly. A couple of things to point out. The ground was very quick out there, and also it seemed like nearside was the place to be on the straight course.
Yeah, and we were just discussing before we came on, weren't we, that, you know, perhaps in the commentary they came back a little bit and a few went a bit early. You said you thought it was going to be a race that worked out well. I wonder if because they're racing on quick ground for probably the first time this season, whether they just got their judgment a bit wrong and, you know, were worried that the horses were not going to quite get there and the ones in front weren't going to come back, and consequently they all went a bit early and ended up stopping a bit at the finish. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out over the rest of the week. It might be something I look at later in the week in sort of horses being ridden prominently might have the advantage because people assume they're going to come back and they might just get their fractions a little bit better.
Yeah, I really do think the commentary is going to work out well. So follow that form. Even the horses that were beaten out of sight, 9 or 10 lengths, some of them, when you watch the replay back, made big mid-race moves and then just paid for that in the latter stages. I think they shaped a lot better than their finishing position suggests. So keep an eye out on a couple of those horses in the Coventry. Okay, straight into day 2's racing then, which begins with the Group 2 Queen Mary for the fillies, 2-year-olds of course, a near maximum field of 26 runners featuring horses from England, Ireland and the US. It's a very competitive renewal, but SBK are offering a fantastic 25% winnings boost on the Queen Mary this year. That's a max stake of £10. T&Cs do apply. But if you're interested in a horse in the Queen Mary, why not bet with SBK? You can get a bigger return, more winnings for your money. Who do you like in the Queen Mary? Because I found this super difficult.
Yeah, I think, you know, all the 2-year-old races often throw up a different result, but I do really like Make Haste. I think the Irish have probably got the better crop of juveniles, so that obviously didn't play out in the Coventry today. Loved what she did at Naas. She broke smartly. Was perhaps a little bit too keen for the early stages, but given that she was keen, stayed really well. And what I loved about her was she was gun barrel straight when asked to quicken. Quite wide down the track, didn't have much company, but ran really straight to the line and very strong through the line. I had a slight query over her temperament. I think you need a good temperament for these juvenile races at Royal Ascot, but interestingly, Diego Diaz, her trainer who's got a breeze-up background, said to Nick Luck that she's got a bulletproof temperament, so I was really pleased to hear that. Turned down money from Wafnan Racing. Now, they didn't get on the board in the Coventry, but they had the second and the third. Clearly got their eye in, Richard Brown doing the buying, so the fact that he was in for her, I see as a little boost to my form lines. So, yeah, quite happy with Make Haste in the first.
Yeah, I'm going to be with you with Make Haste. I'm not as confident as you are, but I think this horse, based on that really impressive debut performance, should be around 7-2, 4-1, and you're getting some value there at 11-2. And I also love that L&J Foxwoods have bought into her. L&J are a huge ownership group in the US. They have lots of horses with Brad Cox, and they've got a fantastic stud farm. So they've obviously bought into her with the long-term aim of using her as a broodmare in the future. Hopefully she can justify that purchase price by winning the first race on Wednesday. I'll also give a shout out to More Lamb at a big price, around 33-1. She's super speedy and I thought she should have won last time up. She just got a little bit unlucky. Maybe if there is another boil over, like we saw plenty on Tuesday, More Lamb could be the one to take advantage. Next we have the Group 2 Queen's Vase, over 1 mile 6 furlongs for the 3-year-olds. And it's a very interesting race with an even more interesting market. On Monday, before jockey bookings were announced, Highbury was the 2-1 favourite. Illinois was 16-1. Ryan Moore decides to ride Illinois, and he's immediately leapfrogged Highbury and gone to the top of the market, around 2-1 favourite, and Highbury is 7-2. Do you think the traders have got that right?
No, I thought they had it right first time out, TC. I like Highbury, both by Galileo, which I think is a good starting point for stamina tests on quick ground. But Highbury's only had 2 runs. Illinois had 4. Just think Highbury might be open to a little bit more improvement. For all he's out of a sprinting dam by Invincible Spirit, but he stayed really well over a mile 4 last time. That maiden's worked out really well. The runner-up has won well since. I think he's going to take another step forward. And I just thought against Illinois, who's had 4 runs, might not be so much progression. Wayne Lorden, interestingly, has ridden plenty of winners on second and third strings this year for Ballydor, so it's not a huge concern for all that. Obviously, I would much prefer to have Ryan Moore in my side than Wayne Lorden.
Yeah, I'm kind of singing from the same hymn sheet, albeit I've come down on a different result, and that's Grosvenor Square, another of Aidan's horses in the race. He was a very good 2-year-old, just shaped okay at Chester on his comeback, but much like most of Aidan's horses, they kind of needed the run first time up, so I'm anticipating a big jolt of improvement. Illinois or Highbury could win this race. It wouldn't really surprise me, but I'll go with a slightly bigger price in Grosvenor Square. And obviously, regular viewers of the SBK podcast will know that I'm a big fan of Illinois, and I've actually put him up as my antipodes play for either the St. Ledger or Irish St. Ledger, depending on where Aidan decides to send him. He's just too short in here for my liking, and I don't think he'll love the ground. He raced really with his head to one side in the latter stages at Lingfield. Like the ground was a little bit too quick for him, and his best form has come with a bit of give underfoot. So I think that's just a word of caution if you want to take the short price, though of course he's definitely got the talent to win a race of this nature. The Group 2 Duke of Cambridge Stakes is up next. That's at 3:45 on Wednesday, and we may have another vulnerable favourite with Laurel, currently heading the market around 130, coming off a year layoff. She's one to take on, isn't she?
Yeah, it's not for me at all, TC. John Gosden and Thady Gosden have been quite vocal about the fact their fillies in particular are needing a run this year. Inspiral, to name but one. She's got the talent, of course she has, and she's probably got the form in the book, but to have to be against her, it's a lofty target for a comeback run. I thought Rogue Millennium had strong chances. I'll leave you to talk about her because I know you like her and I'd be with you. But just at a slightly bigger price, Running Lion for the Gosdens. I like what she did at Newmarket. I think Oisin Murphy put his hand up afterwards and said he wished he challenged a little bit later. She sort of ran around and probably threw the race away. I think she was the best horse in the race on debut. Went to Epsom, where last year she got withdrawn in the stall. She got upset and got injured in the stalls last year. Didn't run well at all, but she wouldn't be the first horse not to run well at Epsom. I can easily forgive that. I think she's got plenty of talent. Might be delivered a little bit later here. So she'll do for me at a decent each way price.
Yeah, nice each way play there. I am very much with Rogue Millennium, as you said. I much prefer her to Laurel, and they're about the same price in the market right now. She won this race last year, surprising a few in doing so. I think she was 10-1 that day. Subsequently moved to Joseph O'Brien, and on the comeback, she was super unlucky. She shaped like the best horse in the race. She travelled through the event like the best horse, but unfortunately, she was pinned up against the far rail and didn't get the gaps when she needed them. Coming back to Ascot's a big positive, and Joseph will have a spot on for this. She's one of my better bets of the afternoon and probably the week, actually. Rogue Millennium. Wednesday's feature is the Group 1 Prince of Wales Stakes at 4:25, and I really liked White Birch in this race. I didn't really care about the ground, to be honest. I know plenty of people said he needs to cut, but he finished third in the Derby on good to firm last year. Unfortunately, connections do believe that he needs to cut, and they didn't declare White Birch, which gets rid of one of the major angles in this year's Prince of Wales. But we still have Inspiral, who defected here instead of running in the Queen Anne. I think she would have won that, by the way. And we've got Auguste Rodin. Do you trust Auguste Rodin? Do you like Inspiral, or are you looking at one at a bigger price?
I think I'd prefer Inspiral over Auguste Rodin. He's just a horse I've never really been fully on board with. I like Alflele. I put him up last week on the preview pod. Loved what he did at Sandown last year and winning the Group 2. Sorry, it was York, wasn't it? Winning the Group 2. Keen for the early stages. Still stayed very well. Then went to the Irish Champion Stakes. That was a mess of a race. Luxembourg and Auguste Rodin dominated it from the front, and everyone was a little bit asleep behind. Jim Crowley, to be fair to Jim, was a long way back. He was slow away from the stalls, and I think he played his hand, hoped they'd come back to him. They didn't. He wasn't hard on him. Finished to good effect. I think he's a talented horse. I would like to see Inspiral go and do it, but I think there's probably a rule on, if you're a long time listener to these pods, if Ross and TC fancy Inspiral, then she's a lay. And if they don't, she's a play. So, I don't think we get her right very often at all. I would just like to see her go and do it. I think Kieran Schumacher's come in for an awful lot of undue flack since getting the John and Thady Gosden job. It's not something I like to see. So it'd be, if I can't back a winner, I'd like it to be him because I think he deserves to get people off his back.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's Al Flayler for Ross. I have no strong opinion in this race. I don't trust Auguste Rodin. He's too in and out for me, and I wasn't overly impressed with him last time up when seemingly he ran his race. Inspiral, I would have preferred her in the Queen Anne over the shorter trip. Horizon Door just seems to find it hard to win. I would have contemplated Blue Rose Sen, but Maurizio Guarnieri's horses just aren't running very well. So I have no strong opinion. We do read the comments. So we saw on day one, the daily pod, that you weren't happy when I said I had no opinion on a race, but as a tipster, as a punter, if I don't fancy anything, I'm not going to push a horse forward for people to bet on. That's just not how I do things. The Royal Hunt Cup is up next, a maximum field of 30 runners. Buckle up, this is going to be fast. Make sure you look at your horse in the early stages so you know exactly where they are on the track. Otherwise, you will lose them with a furlong to go. The draw is going to be super important, but we don't really know how that's going to play out. We saw on Tuesday that being near side was favoured, but we saw in recent years that sometimes it can immediately flip-flop from day to day, and far side could be the better place to be. I'm going to put up one on each side for the purposes of this podcast, and I'll probably bet them just, because I want to have one on each side just in case. The first is Streets of Gold for Eve Johnson-Horton, who finished a really good third in the Jersey last year. I thought his Victoria Cup run was pretty strong, and he just looks one of the class horses in the race. I don't know about the trip for him, but he's a reasonable price, around 16 to 1. The other is Dutch Decoy, who's 25 to 1, and arguably my stronger fancy. He's just an out-and-out consistent handicapper in these big field events. He's going to love the ground as well, and he's drawn near side, which, as I say, proves an advantage on Tuesday. Ross, who are you with?
I'm sticking with Holloway Boy TC. Won the Chesham on his racecourse debut 2 years ago. Was a good fourth in the Jersey last year, so this track clearly suits. He's something of an enigma. They've tried different headgear on him, they've tried different trips. But if you take the view that his first two runs this year are on soft ground and he doesn't like soft ground for all that he's performed on it previously, think back at a track he likes. Maybe this cavalry charge, going down the middle of his favourite track might just jolt him back to life. I didn't think he was the worst each way price. And the thing to say about the draw is exactly that. If they put water down, it's not always that it just goes down evenly. So definitely watch the first couple of races and see if you can get a grasp on it. And I would just mention the old favourite Ropey Guest. He's drawn smack bang down the middle, so that's maybe a safe sort of bet. Doesn't win at this meeting, but runs really well at this track. And it's the first time he gets to run at Royal Ascot on quick ground, having won on quick ground elsewhere last year. He'll be a decent price, and he wouldn't be a surprise to see him hit the frame.
Yeah, he's going to be very popular on play spots and each way multiples, I imagine. Ropey Guest, he always runs well in these big field handicaps. The second last race on the second day of Royal Ascot this year is the Kensington Palace handicap for the fillies and mares. It's 8 to 1 the field and an absolute pin job. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely, TC. I'm going to be a chef refusing to cook food. If I was going to have a free bet, and I'm often asked for them and never get them, Villanova Queen, who won it last year for Jessie Harrington, she's been pretty poor since, but as a result, she's now down to a handicap mark just £1 higher than last year. And I thought she was a good winner last year. She went hard off the front, saw the trip out well. I don't think there was any fluke about it. So if I had to be pressed on one, she would be the selection, but I'm certainly not going to have a bet, and therefore it comes with a warning.
Yeah, I have no strong opinion in this race either. I'll probably have a few quid on a couple, but there's no out-and-out strong fancy. For the purposes of the podcast, I'll put up Regindry for Tom Clover, around 18 or 20 to 1. I was really impressed with her last time at Kempton, and she seems to be an improving type. We don't really know whether she's capable of winning a race of this nature, but there's some, leeway in that current price that you can have a few quid on and take the risk. The reward will be great if she is capable and she goes on to win the race. Finally, let's move on to the Windsor Castle, another wide open event, this time for the 2-year-olds. Not the best 2-year-olds. They run in the Coventry, the Norfolk, the Albany, Queen Mary, etc. Windsor Castle's for the lesser 2-year-olds, but still very talented in their own right. Where are you looking?
I'm going to have two stabs at this, TC. The first is Pont Neuf for Eve Johnson-Houghton, who won this 2 years ago with Chipotle. I think he's really quick. He was very good on debut at Kempton, arguably backed that up under a penalty at Salisbury on his first start on turf. And very few 2-year-olds this year are winning under penalties. It's normally an angle I carry with me that 2-year-olds under a penalty are worth a bit of value at the start of the season because they're racing against inexperienced horses. That hasn't paid its way this year, unusually. So I think the fact he won under penalty is a good thing. Concerningly, he was pretty naughty in the prelims at Kempton. Wasn't a whole amount better last time. If you can see Charlie Bishop get to the start on him, I think he's got a great chance. And that'd be one of my pieces of advice, really, is watch how they handle the prelims. I'd much rather take a slightly shorter price about one that I have seen get through the prelims without boiling over than than a slightly longer price before they get down to the start. So I think if he can handle the prelims, he's got a great chance. He's really quick. Colt, and you told me that Eve Johnson-Houghton put him up as a good chance in an interview, which I hadn't seen. And then the other one is Hawaiian for Richard Hannon. Was really good at Newbury on debut in a race that's worked out well. Richard Hannon doesn't have a huge amount of debut winners these days. He tends to train them to progress through. Very rare that the jockey is allowed to use the whip as well on them. So the fact he won on debut, I think, is a run that can be marked up. He was disappointing next time at Sandown, but the ground was desperate. Put a line through that. I think he looks like a smart colt, and so those would be my two in the final race.
Yeah, a couple darts there from Ross, and as he mentioned, there was a very bullish interview from Eve Johnson-Houghton about Pont-Neuf, conducted with Matt Chapman when he was working for Sky Sports Racing. It's on the At The Races feed if you want to go check that out from Monday. I'm going to go a slightly different direction. I'm going to be with Treasure Isle, hopefully another winner for Aidan O'Brien and Ryan Moore. This horse was just too green on the debut. Raw, unexperienced. He didn't look like he was really going to produce his A game, but he still ran okay. And then next time at Naas, he was far stronger, far more game in the finish, determined, and he got his head in front. I think with another step forward, Treasure Isle could be a major player. The US have a few runners in here, so why not? I'll give you my opinion on them. Gabaldon won a win in your in race at Gulfstream earlier this season. It was very much a pace burn-up, and he just clung on the latter stages. I imagine he's going to be very much like what we've seen from Wesley Ward's horses in previous years. Bullet from the start, tried to make all, and probably get reeled in after about 4 furlongs. Similar situation applies with Cheval de Guerre. He showed lots of speed at Keeneland first time up, in arguably a better race than Gabaldon won. But he, again, just found himself a little bit vulnerable in the latter stages. He gets Oisin Murphy and Resolute Racing have bought him, so it would be fantastic if they had a winner or a horse go close. But I think he's going to be vulnerable to the better stayers. And then Honorary American is the last one for Wes Ward. People are going to bet him because of the Ward angle. I don't think he's good enough. He was dubious to come across. He did a good work last week, and Wes said, get him on the plane. He wasn't originally part of the plan, and that would be a negative for me. Okay, that's day 2. Preview in the book. All we've got to do, Ross, is provide our Napa next best.
So the nap is make haste. I know my fate early in the day in the first race. I loved what she did at Naas. I think she looks thoroughly uncomplicated and quick, which of course is important. And then my next best, I'm going to have another swing at one at a decent price. Holloway Boy in the very straightforward Royal Hunt Cup. Yeah,
Make Haste is 11-2 and Holloway Boy is currently 16-1 with SBK. My nap is going to be Rogue Millennium in the Duke of Cambridge at 7-2. I think she should be favourite and a shorter price than that. It looks a very winnable race for my money. And my next bet is going to be Dutch Decoy at each way in the Royal Hunt Cup at around 25-1. Again, I'll be disappointed if he wasn't in the first 5 or 6, you say. You know, he's very consistent. He'll love the ground. And hopefully, stand side will be a positive for him. Before we go, just a reminder that SBK are offering that fantastic 25% winnings boost in the Queen Mary, the 2:30 on Wednesday at Royal Ascot. Why not use it? You get extra return if you fancy a horse. T's and C's do apply. Max stakes £10. Go check that out. Thank you for listening. Please join us again for tomorrow's podcast. We'll be covering all of Thursday's racing with a brief review of Wednesday's action. Like this if you enjoyed it, subscribe so you don't miss out on all the pods for the rest of this week. Until we see you next, be lucky.